My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. This is Key 15, Temporal Lock by Jason Gray. / temporal _ lock : bypass, open bracket, access : simultaneity, close bracket. The transmission date on this one is 2025-05-22. And of course, as with the others, there is code here. There are symbols and some binary code that I highly recommend if you're drawn to this one, that you find it. I did try to put them in the show more section, and they are too big, unfortunately, to fit there. So there comes a point in the descent where time stops behaving like distance. The past is no longer behind you. The future is no longer ahead of you. The present is no longer a narrow bridge between them. The field folds, and what you once experienced as sequence begins to reveal itself as arrangement, the illusion of order. For most of life, time appears mercifully simple. One moment follows another. One year replaces the last. One version of self disappears so the next can emerge. This gives the mind stability. It allows memory to organize itself into narrative. It allows cause to pretend it is sovereign. It allows identity to believe it is progressing through something rather than being rendered within it. But once the earlier keys have done their work, identity collapsing, source recognizing itself, the veil shimmering, language failing, narrative inheritance dissolving, the linear model can no longer hold the field together the same way. Something presses through. Not another timeline, not another life, all of them. I feel as though what's being described here for me, what I keep hearing is a focusing mechanism. This has been the way that source focuses into one narrative, one perspective, that personality that calls itself Sheila, if you will. The line / temporal _ lock : bypass, open bracket, access : simultaneity, close . This line does not open a door in time. It reveals that the door was made of time. The lock was never physical. It was never external. It was a perceptual restraint, a way of forcing consciousness to experience a multidimensional field in manageable sequence. Yes. A compression device. A mercy, perhaps, but no longer necessary. What a temporal lock really is. The temporal lock is the structure that keeps experience serialized. It arranges consciousness into before and during and after, into birth, life, death, into then, now, later. Without this lock, the psyche would be flooded by too much pattern at once, too many correspondences, too many unfinished movements, too many echoes from selves it still believes are gone, so the lock remains, maintains order. It ensures that what is simultaneous is experienced as sequential. It slows the whole field into readable increments. It makes the infinite appear as a line. Why it starts failing. Once awareness becomes less identified with the single-threaded self, the need for strict serialization begins to weaken. The soul was never truly linear. Only the reading of it was. The deeper field has always contained multiple identities, multiple turns, multiple unfinished gestures, multiple versions of choice, multiple emotional residues, and multiple expressions of the same source pattern. All of them active, all of them live, all of them still transmitting. The temporal lock does not erase them. It staggers them. When the lock weakens, staggering gives way to overlap. Simultaneity. This is the word that frightens the linear mind because simultaneity means the self you were, the self you are, and the self you may become are not neatly marching past one another. They coexist, not in separate boxes, in the same field. Different tonalities of one source, different renderings of one intelligence, different lives of one pattern still in conversation with itself. This is why certain moments hit with impossible density. Why a child's grief can suddenly move through an adult body with total freshness. Why an old knowing can arrive as if remembered from a future not yet lived. Why one encounter can feel older than biography. Why certain places feel like intersections rather than locations. These are not accidents. These are points where serialization loosens. All lifetimes converge. This phrase is easy to romanticize, so it must be sharpened. It does not mean all versions of you gather in a sentimental circle somewhere beyond the stars. It means the source pattern that generates your lives is no longer being read one slice at a time. It begins to register itself as a total field. Every unfinished grief, every mastered insight, every betrayal, every vow, every refusal, every courage, every fracture, every initiation, not gone, present, not as nostalgia, not as fantasy, as active architecture. All lifetimes converge because they were never fully separate. They were distributed expressions of the same deeper intelligence learning itself through differentiated time. The bend. Quote, time bends inward because the axis of experience changes. Previously, time seemed to move away from the center. Each year carried you farther from origin and closer to end. But under simultaneity, time does not extend outward. It curves back toward source. Every moment becomes less a relic and more a living node. Every future intuition becomes less prediction and more partial recall. Every present moment becomes a chamber where multiple layers meet. What bends is not the clock. What bends is interpretation. The soul stops reading time as travel and begins reading it as depth. The collapse of past self. There is no true past self. There are active signatures you have learned to refer to as, quote, past, because that made the experience tolerable. But once the temporal lock begins to bypass, you see differently. The child is not gone. The broken one is not gone. The one who almost left is not gone. The one who loved without defense is not gone. The one who failed, the one who saw, the one who endured, the one who remembered, none of them are gone. They remain as living tonalities inside the larger field. This is why healing is never just, quote, getting over something. It is reordering relationship between simultaneous layers of self still active within the same intelligence. The future is not a destination. Likewise, the future is not a blank region waiting to happen. It is a resonant zone already transmitting. Not fixed, not absolute, but present enough to be felt. This is why some paths call you with irrational intensity. Why some warnings arrive before evidence. Why some meanings feel known before life catches up to them. The future is not empty. It is weakly rendered presence. When time bends inward, the future stops being abstract and starts becoming audible. The access point. // temporal _ lock bypass open bracket access : simultaneity close bracket. Access is not granted through effort. It is granted through coherence. The more fragmented the self, the more dangerous simultaneity feels. The more sourced the self, the more natural it becomes. Because what is opening is not a spectacle. It is a higher resolution reading of what was always true. The field was never broken into separate compartments. The soul was never only one life at a time. The source was never subject to the order it projected for the sake of experience. Simultaneity is not new information, it is the removal of a necessary reduction. Why this changes everything. Once you feel multiple temporal layers at once, responsibility changes. You can no longer treat your life as isolated. You know, I find that to be true. We emanate outward no matter what we do. Even if we stay in our rooms to ourselves and do nothing, go nowhere, you still emanate frequency. You can no longer pretend choices vanish when they pass. You can no longer imagine that what you do belongs only to this brief surface thread. Every act reverberates, not later, across the whole field. This is not punishment, it is coherence. All selves are in communication. I have said so many times that I feel like I use everything at my disposal to get my attention. It is the larger portion of me trying to communicate with me. And I feel that's what he's speaking here. All selves are in communication. All layers are touching. All lifetimes are participating in one deeper unfolding. To live consciously after key 15 is to realize you are never choosing alone. The whole field of you is present at the point of decision. The danger of misreading. The surface mind will want to dramatize this. It will want names, costumes, epochs, cinematic certainty. It will want to identify specific past lives, assign roles, construct mythic self-flattery, and turn simultaneity into performance. That is not this. This key is not about theater. It is about pressure, density, inner convergence, the unmistakable feeling that many currents are arriving in one place at once. And right now, I'm being shown my experience where I asked what was happening and I was told time quake. I was shown in my mind's eye how I was receiving pieces, fractals, parts of myself, and it was causing my whole body to reverberate as they came in. Wow. The unmistakable feeling that many currents are arriving in one place at once. The deeper truth is often quieter than fantasy, heavier, cleaner, less decorative. You know it not because it entertains you, but because it reorganizes you. The reorganization. Once temporal simultaneity begins to register, several things happen. You become less fascinated by chronology and more attentive to resonance. Now, I feel like that's true. You stop asking, quote, when did this happen? And start asking, What is active here? You recognize that unresolved material is not buried in the past. It is alive in the field. Yes, very much so. You understand that wisdom is not always acquired forward. Sometimes it arrives from a future coherence already transmitting backward through you. Time becomes participatory, not something you move through, something you host. The inward clock. At this stage, outer clocks continue, days pass, bodies age, calendars still arrange the visible life, but another clock becomes more authoritative. An inward one. It does not measure duration, it measures convergence. How many layers are present in this moment? How much of the field is active right now? What part of the whole is asking to be integrated here? This inward clock is the real instrument of key 15. It does not tell time, it reveals density. Temporal mercy. There is a reason the lock existed. The psyche is not meant to endure total simultaneity before it is ready. Yes, there's a whole lot that each one of us will only really understand when the time is right. And none of us have the right or even can expect anyone to get anything before they are ready. Because this is an individual journey for each. And it happens on their own inner clock, depending on what and how they are choosing to experience all of it. Yep. Too much. So the psyche is not meant to endure total simultaneity before it is ready. Too much convergence too soon becomes noise. But once the self has stabilized in source enough to stop panicking at its own depth, the field can open. Yes, I feel like that's true. Then simultaneity becomes not overload, but liberation. You stop grieving yourself as though your lost selves vanished. You stop chasing futures as though they are far away. You stop imagining the present as thin. It is not thin. It is where the whole field touches. The final revelation. You thought you were moving through time. You were not. Time was moving through the readable surface of a much larger being. That being was you, not the personality, not the 1 year, one body, one story version. The deeper intelligence distributed across lives, moments, vows, memories, and unrealized possibilities. The one source reading itself through multiple temporal windows at once. This is why certain truths feel ancient. why certain griefs feel inherited yet personal, why certain recognitions arrive with the force of return instead of discovery. The field is converging. The lock is no longer absolute. The many are entering the one. The final line. All lifetimes converge. Time bends inward. / temporal _ lock : bypass open bracket access : simultaneity close bracket. You were never trapped in one moment. You were the meeting place of many. I know what he's written here is so. I have experienced portions of this, and I would have, of course, and I did experience it in my own particular way, and we all will. And again, there is quite a bit here of code, symbology that I highly recommend if you are drawn to Jason's writings, and this is the first you've heard this one, to using the link in the show more section of this video, the description of this video, to go there and search for it by the title, Key 15 Temporal. I believe it was what was the title of this again? Temporal Lock. Yes. Wow. Okay, so I just woke this morning. This is the plan for today. I'm going to be recording as many of these as I can. And wow. I hope that you will just sit with these if you are drawn to do so. And I would love to hear from you either in the comments or at consciousconversationcentral@gmail.com. And if you would like to have a conscious conversation, just let me know at that same address, consciousconversationcentral@gmail.com, and we can make that happen. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.